Tech Talk Tuesday, number 84. Let me tell me when you're looking. I see one. I see a few. Alrighty. We got some stuff to talk about today that will interest engine builders, just mechanically minded gearheads, people that love the same stuff I do, and interested in how some of this works. There's a lot of people on here. Hey, Charlie, Dwayne, Daryl, Seth, Matt, Dave. There's a lot of people that watch this Tech Talk Tuesday every Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock on Eastern Time. And I'm very thankful for that, and I love sharing this information with you guys. But I wanted to tell you there's a lot of guys that don't know how this stuff works, but they watch the internet and they have their own personal expert that they believe in that tells them what's up and what they think. And I tell you every week, this is my opinion based on what I think I know. And George, Jim, Claude, man, it's good to see you guys' names. Got some friends on here. Bruce, Kelly, good to see you folks, man. Thank you for watching. Got some stuff interesting to tell you about that I'm fired up, and I'm going to change over to me for a minute, talk to you in person. There you go. How you guys doing? Let's see if I can get my camera angle right. Yeah, that's a little better. Anyway, I just wanted to tell y'all how cool it is for you guys to watch and listen to what I have to say, and we're learning, you know. And one thing I really enjoy about it, Steve and Jim and Jerry, is that when I say it out loud and I try to explain it to you, sometimes it really helps me understand it and ask myself questions. And so, hey Jim, and there's some really great guys on. I see their names go across here every week, and there's some, you know, my friends, my family, my frenemies, my followers, my fans, and my faith is what I try to share with you, all of you guys, every week. And I know sometimes it's a little tough for some of you to hear George's opinion on everything. But look, that's what it is. It's my opinion. And I got some cool stuff to tell you. So I think it's after 6 already. Yeah, I was just looking at the clock, Chris. And I want to talk about compensators, one thing. And I want to tell you why it's called a compensator. And, you know, we raced V-twins. We raced really fast Harleys. We raced really fast S&S engines. We've raced V-twin pro stockers. And the folks that race V8s and 4-cylinders really have no concept of how bad this thing vibrates. And I'm not talking about to your seat. I'm not talking about for you riding down the road. I'm talking about the parts. If you bolt it to an engine dyno, it shakes electronics apart. It shakes welds apart. It's a vibrating machine. Somebody asked me one day, the Pro Stock S&S 160 that we raced for 10 years, how bad does it vibrate? And I said, well, if you went to Home Depot and you went into the paint department and you got their best paint shaker, and it's got like a dial 0 to 10, and you took that paint shaker and you clamped it into the other paint shaker that's sitting next to it. So you clamp one paint shaker into the first paint shaker, clamp them together, and then turn both of them on 10. And that thing is a blur. It vibrates so bad. And the first one we took out and ran, I think it was in 2003, when Fred Collis was the test pilot, and he went to the starting line and went in and he put it on the 2-step. And after the run, I went and got him. I came back. I said, what did the Christmas tree look like when you, I was trying to figure out why he didn't cut a light. And he said, I said, what did the Christmas tree look like when you were staging it? And he said, that's what the Christmas tree looked like. I said, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. So there is a lot going on right there. And Peter, hey, Jim, Tyler, yep. It's amazing how a dyno can hold up to it, and the things we bolted onto our motorcycles could live through those vibrations. The new Harleys, the twin cams, the late model twin cams, and the late model Milwaukee 8s have such great vibration counterbalancers that it's actually pretty comfortable to ride. My last Milwaukee 8 and my twin cam, riding down the highway 75 miles an hour, looking in the rearview mirrors, they were clear as a bell, the mirrors. I'm talking about more clear than a car, more clear than my Hayabusa or GSXR 1000. I mean, those are vibrating machines too, but they have a different frequency and a different RPM where they vibrate too. So most engines vibrate pretty bad. A V8 is nice because it's 90 degrees, everything's canceling itself out, and it's got 8 cylinders to absorb all that and to share all that vibration. But the V-twin has one crank pin. It has a main and a rod pin, and both rods are on that pin, and they're going around like this, and it's up and down, up and down, up and down, and those rods and those 2 cylinders are firing 45 degrees apart. Actually, it's more than that. It's 315 and 405, I think it is. Or, yeah, something like that. I didn't do the math right in front of me, but they fire, and then 400 degrees later it fires again, and then 300 and something degrees later it fires again, and that's a bang, bang, and then bang, bang, and then bang, bang, and it shakes and shakes, and the parts that you bolt to it shake really bad. So I wanted to share that, and I want to tell you about one thing that works really good is a compensator, and it's been on Harleys for a long time, and there is a great product out there that you can buy to eliminate the compensator. It's a solid motor sprocket, bolts right onto the crankshaft, and whatever that crankshaft is doing, that motor sprocket transmits that through the primary chain, through the clutch basket, through the chain tensioner, and then that clutch basket tries to be the compensator. So those steel plates that are bolted, they're splined onto the inner hub in that clutch is trying to break off. The outer clutch basket that we see, Trask makes a real nice billet one, and there's several really cool billet baskets out there, Barnett, and I guess there's a few other, Bandit, make some really nice parts, but those parts end up being the compensator. And those parts jackhammer, and when they jackhammer, the aluminum fibers or the steel fibers that are splined into the outer basket are just trying to tear the basket apart. So the basket's trying to explode, the plates are trying to explode the basket off. So I am a very big fan of what Harley did here when they created the compensator. Now this is a twin cam compensator. Is just like the Milwaukee 8. This is virtually identical to the Milwaukee 8. And the reason I put twin cam in is so I don't get confused. But the Milwaukee 8 one is thinner here. I don't know if it's 60 thou or what, but it is identical. And this right here, the spline that this inner sprocket, excuse me, this is the billet. No, it's not. This is the ramp cam for the compensator. And I'm going to attempt to show you guys how this works. I'm going to take the motor sprocket, and I'm going to drop this on it, and I'm going to show you how this works. Now this part, the chain that goes through the clutch basket goes around the motor sprocket, okay? And then there's big springs, these big discs that go on here to hold this together, to keep this together. But when you need for the crankshaft, when this chain is hooked to your clutch basket and you're sitting at a traffic light and you're sitting still, this crankshaft is in here going like this. And it makes a noise. And then when you put oil on it, you bolt it to the crank, it's not quite that loud. But when you have a solid sprocket on the motor bolted down solid, this sprocket right here is going like that. And the chain is jackhammering the chain adjuster that goes underneath the shoe, and the clutch basket is back there, and this chain is just wearing us out. Because this is all one piece. When you buy a motor sprocket, a solid compensator eliminator kit, this is all together, and it's going like this. Now, Harley puts them on all the stockers, on their big twins, twin cams, Milwaukee 8s, all of them have this. Now, there's a bunch of guys watching right now that have broken these. There's guys watching this right now that have these twin cams, and they have to buy new ones. And once they buy a new one, they're going, wow, I don't want to buy that anymore. That thing costs $400. That thing costs $300. I can buy a solid sprocket for $150, and I'm done. Well, guess what? You're not done. You're going from this crankshaft going like this, and the springs on the back holding it together to where it doesn't beat your driveline to death. And then you change it out to a $150 solid sprocket or a $200 solid sprocket. Now you're sending the jackhammer that's absorbed right here. This is the compensator. It compensates but all that jackhammer motion for you. Now let's watch it. It doesn't, hardly ever does it jump over, but if it had to, it has room to. If it had to jump over, it has room to. That's why they're ramped. But these big solid springs that go on the back hold this together so that it doesn't jump over. Instead, it goes like this. But every now and then, if you do a 150, 140, something 60 foot on a big twin, you can feel this thing jump. You'll feel it jump. And the twin cam ones don't break. And my opinion is why they don't break is because this is a better piece of material. I believe this is a forging. I believe that it is 1/16 of an inch thicker right through here where the Milwaukee 8s break. And we don't break them on the twin cams because it's a little bit heavier part, it's a little bit stronger part, and the only thing that goes wrong is these wear because it's metal to metal, and if you use a good primary fluid, this wears less, and it's acceptable in my opinion. But it is a disposable part, y'all. Listen to me a minute. A disposable part, a tire, clutch plates, cables, brake shoes, brake rotors, disposable parts, compensators. This thing wears out. I like for people to put 20,000 miles on a compensator and change it. And then people will say, man, I had to put a new compensator on my bike at 15,000. I had to put a new compensator on my bike at 20,000. I got 30,000 on mine and it needs a new compensator. Well, guess what? They don't break on the twin cams. They just wear out. And one thing that wears out is the stack of springs. Let me see if I can find them. These are springs. This is straight proof right here that a spring can look different than you think it does. But these are springs. And when you bolt this thing on, it compresses all these, and it is really hard. It's really hard to make these compress more in order for this to jump a tooth, but it will do it. Now, when your springs get worn out, you can shim it up and tighten the springs up. If you're wearing out these parts, if this part is wearing out, it needs better lube. It needs better oil. They make that hold up longer. And I'm not going to tell you what oil to use because I'm not in that line of work. But I know there's some primary oil that works better than others. But remember, guys, the primary oil is also the clutch plate fluid. Like in your automatic transmission, you use oil for several reasons. You use it to lubricate the parts inside the auto tranny. You use it to take the heat out of the parts, and you use it to lubricate the clutch plates. So, and you need it as a hydraulic fluid in an automatic transmission. So it's a very, very complicated liquid. It's a very complicated part. On the Harley, we need it to lubricate the parts. We need it to take heat out of these parts that glow colors when they start wearing. But you can get some wear reduction lubricants that will make this hold up better. But please, you guys, don't complain if you got 20,000 miles out of your compensator. You have no idea. I tell you what, if you dynoed one and raced one, you would understand a little better about it, what it's going through. But you don't want to replace this. You don't want to get rid of this compensator. Now, this is George's opinion, and I'm going to make some people mad. And it's okay. This is just my opinion. If you don't like my opinion, probably ought to change the channel. But this is the deal. There's a lot of people that love a solid motor sprocket. And the crankshaft's going like this. The crankshaft is trying to break it off. So that sprocket is a jackhammer. And that sprocket is sending the jackhammer through the chain, sending it to the clutch. And if your clutch wears or breaks, then you're going to buy a billet clutch part and put a Barnett clutch or some AIM or some Bandit clutch that doesn't slip anymore. And then it's going to blow the tranny out. So you're going to break the rear belt. You're going to blow third gear off the tranny. You're going to tear up a stock gearbox. You're going to tear up a Jim's gearbox, you're going to tear up a Baker gearbox, because they're all made to work with this. We need a compensator. Can you see how this can move around without sending the shock waves to the other parts? Because there's the weakest link. The weakest link is always going to show up first. So if you don't like the way this wears and you got to buy a new one every 20,000 miles, I'm going to do some math on that, y'all. This compensator, the stock Harley or the Screaming Eagle twin cam compensator like this one. This is a Screaming Eagle twin cam compensator. This costs $400 divided by 20,000 miles equals, sorry, I never was good at math. 20,000 miles divided by $400 equals, I don't even know. I guess you get 50 miles to $1. So a tire doesn't do that good. A tire, you got to put a new tire on. You got to put 2 tires on for every compensator, 2 rear tires, maybe a front tire, because it's a wearable item. Now, the Milwaukee 8s, a lot of folks watch this because they want to see the Milwaukee 8 story. The Milwaukee 8 one is identical, except they made this part lighter. They cut all this out and made it a lighter part so that it had less flywheel inertia. They made this part lighter, and they made it cheaper. They made it out of a cast material, and they cut this cross-section down. And I would say, out of the people that are watching now, have probably seen 50 of these break. Personally, you guys have seen these break, and they break. They snap here. They're very hard and very brittle. So what Harley did was they tried to reduce the wear on the lobes. This is my opinion. So they made this part really, really hard, so this wears less. So when you see a broken M8 one, it's not worn, but it is shattered here and here and here. So a great product to maintain the compensator's ability to compensate for the jackhammer. This is a billet Milwaukee 8 compensator clutch or ramp plate, but it's billet material. So this billet is an EN36 Timken material, super heat treated, super tough. And this little extra rise right here does not get in the way. I've seen several people wonder if that gets in the way on here, but it does not. But this little teeny bit built up dam right here creates these splines the same length and the same depth as the twin cam. And this also fits. I have not raced one or run one on a twin cam, but this is the same part. So being it's thinner here, you can see it's thinner. Twin cam's thicker here, Milwaukee 8's thinner here. So it's hard for them to make a part that only costs $10 for them to make. That's very hard, really, really hard surface, and then malleable enough to give without snapping like a piece of glass, because the stock one is really hard. You know how porcelain, I don't know if anybody, all these old folks on here know what porcelain is. It's very, very hard, but it is very brittle. If you drop a piece of porcelain, it won't wear out, but it sure will break into a bunch of pieces. And the stock, the stock ramp cam on the twin cams, on the Milwaukee 8s is brittle. Very hard, but brittle. This is an extremely tough part. This material that is used is the same material that's used to make billet crankshafts, like nitro crankshafts. Like the material here, this EN36, it's got a soft core where it gives, but the outside where it's been, I guess what they call this is when it's heat treated, and I'm going to try to say the word. Well, I'll think of it in a little while. But anyway, this doesn't wear because it's so hard on the surface, but it doesn't shatter because it's so tough, like a crankshaft. The stock part is brittle. This part is billet material, and that helps a ton. Now, right now we only got 10, got them super finished, REM finished, They're polished, and then of course they're micro finished to have even a harder surface on them. Got 10 more coming, and I was really surprised at how well these sold. So we're definitely stepping up the game. We're going to get a bunch of them built so that most all of our Milwaukee 8 friends need this. And I want to tell you, if you are convinced you need a solid sprocket, just know that the next thing hooked to it will break. It's going to break the primary chain. It's going to break the tensioner, the chain tensioner, because the jackhammer goes straight into that little baby little. That's a very precise little part that doesn't handle much load because it's not supposed to. I'm talking about the chain tensioner, but that you can change it over to every other brand, but it's still held on with one little baby bolt, 2 bolts, and it's a pretty delicate part, and you do not want to hit it with a jackhammer. A solid sprocket that goes where this goes turns this sprocket into a jackhammer. So we want to make sure that we keep compensation here. It eliminates the chain breakage, the chain tensioner breakage, it eliminates the clutch basket breakage, and it eliminates the transmission breakage, and it also helps eliminate the rear belt breakage. Now, if you want to put a chain on it, what you're doing is you're taking a weak link and moving it to the next weak link, and then you're moving it to the next weak link, and then you're moving it to the next weak link, and pretty soon you're just breaking everything. And there's guys on here watching, and I know you personally, and you're friends of mine. You can break anything. You can break a rear chain, you can break a sprocket, you can break a compensator, you can break a chain tensioner, you can break a clutch basket, you can break an engine, you can break a bolt. I even know guys that are personal friends of mine that can even break a steel ball. It takes a lot to break a steel ball. But I wanted to also tell you this part. Milwaukee 8, twin cam, it don't matter. This part right here. This is a big sprocket, and it's got the right amount of teeth on it to have the correct primary ratio for the clutch to work. So there's people on the internet that I see every day that say, man, you need to put a 4-tooth, 2-tooth, 3-tooth, whatever, smaller motor sprocket. First of all, they're solid, which turns into a jackhammer. Second of all, is they change this ratio and put all the load on the clutch basket. So when they change this ratio, they say, man, it accelerates harder, it digs out harder, and it makes more acceleration by changing this sprocket size. Well, you should change it on the rear belt. You should change the pulley on the transmission. You should change over to a chain drive if you're breaking belts, and you should get your gear ratio change outside of the primary, because this gear, this ratio right here, is designed to work with the clutch. So all the clutches are the same size. They have to have, and they have the same amount of teeth on them. And then when you change this sprocket size, you change the ratio from a 1.35, 1.36 to a 1.4, a 1.5, 1.55, which changes the percentage of load that goes through the clutch plates. And guess what happens when you do that? You're passing the buck. You're passing down the line to the next weak link. If you change this motor sprocket size to a smaller one just so you can get more acceleration, because you can't afford engine work, or you want to cheat the system and get a smaller sprocket so it accelerates harder through the gears, I'll tell you how to do it right in a minute. But if you do that, you have created a situation where your clutch cannot hold. The ratio changes so dramatically that clutch doesn't have enough clamping power to keep the clutch from slipping, so you have to put a Scorpion, an AIM, a lockup, Barnett, a Bandit, all these great kits and all these great parts that a stock engine shouldn't need, because if you keep this ratio stock, now you've got a 1.36 ratio where it allows your clutch to be in its range of ability. You're not asking it to do something it can't do. So the way I would do it is I wouldn't go to a small engine sprocket, and I wouldn't go to a solid sprocket. I would change the rear pulley. So if it comes with a 32 on the motor, on the transmission, the pulley for the belt, I'd put 1 tooth less or 2 tooth less, so that you can get the same acceleration without having to have more power in your engine. Those are just my thinking. That's my thoughts. So when I build a racing bike, Bagzilla, for instance, y'all, Bagzilla, run 930s and 940s all the time with several different riders on it, still has the stock compensator, still has the Screaming Eagle compensator, or I'm sorry, it even has That's one that came in a 2013. It had in there for 2 years and all the drag racing, and every time we take it apart, it looks good. Now, I sold Bagzilla to my friends in Oklahoma, and they have other people working on it and other techs doing their version of what needs to be done to it. But as soon as they change over to a solid sprocket, because it gets worn out like a tire or a clutch plate, then the trouble has just started, because now you're going to get that jackhammer. And I know I wore that jackhammer story out, but keep the ratio stock so your clutch can work. If you want more acceleration with a stock engine, change the rear pulley gearing, not the gearing inside the primary. Bagzilla has a completely stock primary in it, 2 years drag racing, goes on all motor, no nitrous, no turbo, no supercharger, runs 930s, 940s, makes 190, 200 horsepower, turns 7,500 RPM all the time, and it still has the stock compensator in it. As soon as I tried that on the Milwaukee 8, first day, this part broke, because it's not the same material. It's harder, so these lobes don't wear, but it is so brittle they snap in 3 places. So anyway, I want to share that with you. And we're going to have these available. This billet part, it's probably 10 times stronger, and it's just as hard, where it won't wear here, but it won't break in the middle, like nowhere near, probably 10 times stronger than the stock one. So far, we haven't needed one for a twin cam, because the only thing that goes wrong with a twin cam is they wear, because this part was tough. It was a forged tough part that doesn't break because it's not brittle, but it does wear on these lobes, on these ramps, and that gets people freaked out. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. We're going to sell this billet part for Milwaukee 8s. It's going to be around $400. I know that the Harley dealerships have tons and tons of these broken. They warranty a bunch of these. Every time somebody goes out and speed shifts a stock Milwaukee 8, a stock one with 80 horsepower, they break these. You can take a stock Milwaukee 8 and break these. I got a friend here in Nashville, Harley store, and he says he has to put Man of Wars and solid sprockets on every one of them because they break this part. So many. That's why this is needed, because we can get the compensation of that you need and the toughness of a solid sprocket. Anyway, I know that was kind of a little bit like a commercial the whole time, but I'm telling you, man, I get so many calls. I get so many people asking me about what's going on. What is that part? What is this part? What does it do? What's it for? Why do you have to have this? Well, it's the compensator, which your engine, the way a two-cylinder V-twin it needs that, in my opinion. It asked me about my socks. I got my black cat socks on today. Sorry, I don't stand up that good like that. Yeah, but some people ask me about my socks. And that's all I really got today. Thank y'all so much for watching. And stay tuned. Tech Talk number 85 is next week. This is Tech Talk number 84. I'm thankful for y'all to watch. May God bless y'all, and good night.